and introduce.
Hi, I'm Hewitt. I'm a second year in mechanical engineering, and in CS Academy, I'm involved in teacher outreach, so I help answer questions that teachers have and lead questions occasionally.
So guys, I'm Joel at Carnegie Mellon studying business and system machine learning. At CS Academy, I'm also a member of the outreach team. Just like what Hewitt does, we do professional development sessions and answer teacher tickets. Popcorn to Jay.
Awesome. So my name is Jay. I'm also a sophomore at CMU, and I'm studying material science and engineering. And at CS Academy, I also do some outreach like John and Hewitt, but I'm also on the CS3 team. Popcorn to Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm a second year at Carnegie Mellon University studying mathematical sciences, and I'm also in outreach, answering teacher tickets, leading PD sessions, and I'm really excited to be here with you all for the live interview. And just as a reminder, you can add questions in the YouTube live chat, and we're going to answer them. So just to get us started, we have some questions pulled up for us, which is, how did you first get involved in the project, all of you guys?
We'll start with you again.
Oh, yes. So, I remember the day well. In our introductory class for computer science at Carnegie Mellon called 112, one of the leads from the project came to talk to us about what it was and like what students could do during it and how it's to help high schoolers learn computer science. And that really resonated with me because in high school, I wish I had a better computer science curriculum. And so I was like, that sounds like something I want to be involved in. And then just took it from there.
I sort of had a similar experience with Hewitt, but I really got in touch with the CS Academy staff. It's like we were actually in the same introductory CS class, and we had this, competition called Hack 112. 112 is our code name for our class. So one of the sessions they hosted in 112 was CS for Social Good. So actually, one of our lead developers, Austin, and one of the CS3 staff members, Lauren, they came to speak to all the students about CS for Social Good. So basically, CS Academy, majority of the stuff we do is, we're a nonprofit. We offer our resources for free, and then we just try to get as many middle schoolers and high schoolers to get into the world of computer science. So I really like that because, just like Hewitt, I didn't have that many opportunities in my middle school and high school years. So just participating in the process of sharing these opportunities with the upcoming college students really something that I would like to be a part of. That's Jay.
So I had almost the same experience as Hewitt, where I was sitting in my introductory class, and then Aaron came in and talked about the CS Academy project, and was describing it as basically like a social good project, to teach high schoolers computer science. So immediately I felt a personal connection to it because in high school I didn't take any computer science classes, and after coming to college and taking CS, that's when I realized like, oh dang, I really should have got into this earlier. And the other thing is they pretty much talked about the job as being like teaching other teachers computer science. And at first, like I was super scared. Like I was very scared to teach teachers computer science. And I figured, because I'm scared of it, I may as well try it out. So that's how I got started.
I also have the same experience. Actually, Aaron came to our introductory computer science class and really talked about the project. And I really like the message and the goal of the project, that we're trying to bring world-class free education to high schools and promote CS education in all high school secondary education. And I guess we really all talked about that. So I know you guys all talked about your CS education background, but if you guys want to talk more about it, feel free.
I have a little bit to say about just about like my opinions on CS. Like part of the reason in high school that I never got into programming or CS is because I was always into like biology and stuff like that. So in my mind, I was always putting CS in the corner of being like really technical and not something I'd ever need, and not something that I'd ever be good at, and not something that I'd ever be interested in. And then after coming to college and taking programming class, realizing how many applications it has, how useful it is, and how much I enjoyed it, then I really gained like a 180-degree different perspective on CS. Do you guys have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I also have to add. In high school, I didn't take any like official classes. I sort of poked around in CS a little bit and tried to learn on my own, but I didn't have like a structured curriculum like CS Academy, which I wish I did.
Well, yeah. So my previous conception of CS was like, when I was young, I thought it was about like video games and stuff. I love playing video games, but I don't enjoy making them. So looking at the code, like somehow I came across one of like the prototypes, the codes for one of the video games, and I was like, what the heck is this? I don't understand what it means and stuff. So so I sort of wanted to explore how each program works, how they function, so and maybe make my own game, which CS Academy offers as well for our creative tests. So that gives you the opportunity to just showcase your own ideas and just put them into work.
I want to add on to what John was saying there. Is before like taking a CS class like 112, the gap between like an app or a game and like the actual code behind it, I had like zero understanding of how any of it worked, and I didn't really understand like what the code was for, or like to me it was like a total black box. Like it just worked. So yeah, after taking even like an intro class, the way like things like that are cleared up a little bit, and you get a little more clear picture of like how anything on a computer works. It's definitely really eye opening.
We actually got a question here in the chat. Tim asks, what is the biggest hurdle that you've had in your CS journey so far? Anyone want to answer first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
This might sound like obvious, but my biggest hurdle was just the first step, because everyone I had heard from at CMU was saying that like the intro class 15112 was really hard, and like I said, didn't really even know what programming was. So for me, like the biggest hurdle was just wrapping my head around like what code is for and then how to code. So for me, like the biggest hurdle was just trying to like those first couple weeks of the intro class, like figuring out why we were doing anything we were doing, what syntax was like versus like what even a coding language was. All this was unclear to me. So yeah, that the biggest hurdle was just figuring out the very basics, and then from there everything's felt a little easier.
On to that. Yeah, I agree. Definitely getting started is the hardest part because unlike like math or science or English, you don't really have usually any coding experience before, and so it's just a whole new thing. And so sort of understanding how it works and how to learn computer science is something, the new skill that you need to learn. So getting started is definitely one of the tricky parts.
Yeah. So like for CS, like at CMU, we emphasize a lot about the practicality of your programs and stuff. So like you might have an idea, but like how to implement it in your code is like sort of like you use different logics when you're coding. So that might be a little different in how you envision it. So kind of transitioning from your thought to code, that was like the most difficult part for me.
Yeah, definitely. Trying code out for the first time was pretty hard. I know in 112 there's a lot of people with prior experience to coding, and I didn't even know what a for loop was. So I guess that was one of the biggest hurdles. But once I got into it, it was super fun, and I now intend to minor in comp sci. So my biggest hurdle is, I guess, one of the most helpful experiences that led me into my CS journey. Yeah. And speaking of hurdles and experiences, what is your favorite topic that you've learned in CS?
I've got one. Okay. So in this class 112, one day, the Professor Cosby, world renowned, he comes into class and he starts saying stuff like, if you throw a bunch of coconuts randomly on an island, you can calculate the value of pi. And I was like, he's lost it. But it turns out he was right. And so there's this whole genre where it's taking random numbers, but you actually can find like useful results from the random numbers. And I thought that was really interesting. I didn't even thought about, because usually if like before when I thought about computer science, it's like, oh, you can make a program to do something, to make an app or a website. But this was like a completely different, and I hadn't thought about them before. And I thought that was really cool.
I'll take the next one. Yeah. So I guess my favorite concept I learned is graphics, right? Because you can actually put stuff that you sort of like, you can like insert pictures or even audio files on CS Academy, from given by the CS Academy platform to your sandbox, so you can make graphics and stuff. So that's sort of you can do all kinds of things with it. You can make games. You can like, I made a meme for just for like one of our projects just to like make everybody laugh, and that was something that it was my own project, and I really felt just pretty accomplished. And then just how many things that you can like make with the graphic packages on Python is definitely very helpful.
I will agree with John. The graphics are pretty cool because that's like when you can actually like you can feel like you start coding like a video game, even with some simple code. But beyond graphics, I'd say like my favorite thing is actually something I used like in my final project in my intro class, which is search algorithms. Because I in my final project I kind of had like a puzzle game, and I used breadth first search in order to like create a solver for the puzzle, and it was really just amazing to me because I was like able to figure out how to code some search algorithm, and that search algorithm could solve puzzles way better than I ever could. So I'd say that was like the first point in my like coding experience where like I suddenly like coded a function that seemed way smarter than anything I could ever do with just my own thoughts. So yeah, to me that's my favorite part. That's like where the disconnect happened, and I started seeing the real power of like programming and computers.
So I definitely agree with Jane that the algorithms were the most interesting to me. It was my favorite topic. It's really similar to math topics right now. For example, searching algorithms sometimes uses binary trees. We use that in math. We talk about it. There's graph algorithms, something that uses graph theory, which also comes up in math, which is very interesting. And making those connections from math and CS was very interesting. So that's how I got into CS. Through those topics as well. So, how did you like? Is there any like favorite projects that you've done, or cool projects using CS like coding? And if you guys want to talk about it.
I can take it. Yeah. Yes. So in this class 112 that we've mentioned a lot, at the end everybody does a project, and my project was I sort of started to recreate Minecraft. Like not completely, but there's a lot of stuff that is involved in making the blocks appear, and if they're 3D, you need to store the blocks and you need to draw them, but the ones in front are drawn after the ones in the back so that they look like they're the closest, and then there are projections and matrices, and I thought that was a lot of fun because it was like making my own sort of graphics, and so I liked that sort of Minecraft project from scratch. That's what I did.
Yeah, so also for the same project, I did air hockey. So basically, I built an AI to sort of play against me. My air hockey is a little different from the video games that you might see on the app stores and stuff because I have different shaped hockey sticks, not hockey sticks, the hockey pushers. So I use a lot of trigonometry, the math and stuff. I'm sure you guys high schoolers are learning right now algebra 2. So just the angles and stuff, how the hockey the puck travels. So that was a lot to figure out using code, but it was all worth it at the end to see the finished product.
Yeah, obviously I really like my 112 project as well. But for me, since I'm a materials engineer, my favorite applications of code have been like anytime I've been able to like apply programming to some problem in material science and engineering. So for example, like I was able to use like some of the principles of like for loops and conditionals and everything to like model the phases of a material depending on composition and stuff. And it was really difficult, but like because of programming experience, I was able to do it. And then it was just really rewarding at the end because I got to connect, my main major, material science and engineering, to programming. And together, I was doing something like really powerful that I couldn't do with just either one of them. So that's probably my favorite like project I've done with programming.
One of my favorite projects is probably the term project that we did at the end of the year during our introductory science course, which was I just made a game. I'm not sure if everyone has heard of it, but it was like Legend of Zelda. So just recreating the graphics, just making the algorithms behind, just the game AI, how the monster moves and everything. It was really fun. It took a lot of research and a lot of office hours, but it was definitely worth it, and that was a lot of fun. And we got a question in the chat again. So what advice do you have for a student who wants to learn CS, but their school doesn't offer CS or they can't fit it into their schedule? So anyone has?
I can go first. In my opinion, if there's anything you're ever interested in learning, you should just take the time outside of your school schedule and outside of like your normal daily activities to just go ahead and learn it by yourself. Because like obviously, all your classes are really valuable, but a lot of times the skills you need in the future or just the skills you want aren't just going to be, kind of handed to you. Sometimes you have to seek them out yourself. So yeah, I would say just start looking online for ways to learn code just independently. And I did just start taking initiative yourself. For example, like since I was so scared that I didn't know any programming before the intro class, like the winter break before that class, I just went online and I like just basically used any online resources I could to get an idea of like what programming was and the basic principles of it. So then once I went into that class, I was a lot more prepared. So it's surprising how much you can do just through, being really studious and getting on the internet and searching about the things you're interested in and just putting the time in. Of course, it's never like clear how to begin, but beginning's the hardest part. And then once you find an avenue to learn something, it just takes off from there.
Use our platform. You can like sign up for an account on CS Academy as a student as well. So we have pretty comprehensive videos covering all the concepts. So that should get you. It's a pretty good start for any beginning programmers. Yeah.
And I'd want to add like that I did use CS Academy
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I was on that search and trying to figure out how to program. So.
Yeah, in high school, I didn't take any computer science classes, but I looked around on my own, and actually Apple has a series of books where they teach you about app development, it was really fun because I didn't know any programming, but you can still do stuff like you can make an app and download it on your phone, and then if you press it, the screen turns black. If you press it again, the screen turns white. And the first time you do that, it's like super cool. It's like, wow, I made an app. So and that doesn't even require that much programming knowledge. So that was a fun little avenue that I did. And now that I have some more programming experience, I can do more with the app development. So I thought that was pretty fun.
I want to add on to that. I guess like so like the like everybody said, the first step is to find just to sort of explore your interest in computer science. So if you have that interest, then you will have the sort of the eagerness, the kind of the ambition to learn more, and that definitely helps you with the learning process. Because if you actually enjoy something, then you're more likely to master it and stuff. So definitely find something just because CS is so broad, so there must be an area that you at least have some interest in. Just explore it more and then figure it out.
Oh, can I add on?
Yeah.
And then Christina.
All good, all yours.
Reading about the history of computer science is also really interesting because there are like all these advancements that are pretty recent, but it's advanced pretty quickly over the past like 70 years or something. And so just reading about like starting from the beginning and like the semiconductors and stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah. If you can't like fit into your schedule like genuinely because you're doing like a lot of after school activities or whatever. But if you're like me, you go on, social media, procrastinate a little bit for 3 hours and then, go like, oh my goodness, it's bedtime and then go to bed. Maybe invest some of your time, like procrastination time into CS or, just maybe searching something interesting. Maybe even on social media, there's a lot of coding content, something really cool about CS. Or just go online, learn more things, use our platform. It's really great. Try coding things a little bit, start your own project. And I feel like that's how you really get into CS and learn by yourself. And speaking of learning CS, I feel like you code a lot when you learn CS, right? So I feel like big part of coding is also debugging.
Okay.
So do you guys have any, tips or tricks on how to debug or how you debug in general?
Yeah. You can
Go ahead. Sure. So how I debug, basically I just added assert statements before each like important lines of codes. So like by important I mean like the variables that you're essentially constantly using in like certain functions and stuff. So you want to make sure that certain conditions are met for that function before entering like a big, let's say a loop or calling another function with it. So just like assert statements, if you want it to be this value, you want to check it to make sure that it is actually the value that you're using.
I like to use print statements a lot. They're really useful. So like if you can go inside a function, say, every time this function runs, print the name of the function ran, and then you can sort of map out what happened and what made the code crash using all these print statements. So that's that's a method I use a lot. I also like to make it print funny words sometimes, like spaghetti. So if this function ran spaghetti, and I see spaghetti, I know this function ran.
It keeps your spirits up. Well,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I want to agree with Hewitt. Print statements for me are like my number 100% debugging tool, because for me, like the hardest or the most frustrating bug is when I think I'm entering a function, or I think I'm entering a for loop, or I think I'm entering a conditional, but I'm not. So, and you can always deduce whether or not, or whether you are or aren't with a print statement. So for me, I'll literally just go like, all right, I know I'm entering this piece of code. From there, I'll print like at all the different lines where I might not be entering, run it, and then see. And then from there, I can see, well, these things printed out, these things didn't, and then I can automatically see like how Python actually looked at my code. Because I think a lot of the causes of bugs is that we're not actually understanding like the exact explicit steps that a language is doing when it's looking through your code and parsing through it. So print statements are just a way to like make it really obvious, what piece of code got entered, what value something returned, and then it might take some time, but it can always make things like 100% clear.
I definitely agree in the print statements. Like when you go to office hours, because you can't, you try to solve your, little bug for maybe 6 hours, and then you go to office hours and they tell you to do a print statement, and like 5 minutes in, you found an error and you know how to fix it. So print statements is definitely a big thing. And one of the things I do to avoid bugs in the first place is to design a code on paper, like draw pictures if that helps you. Maybe think about the algorithm a little bit, and then coding it or like implementing it. That really helps go about your code without, getting bugs. Yeah. And we also got another question here, and it's what do you hope to do with the skills you've learned in CS? Does anyone have anything?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
So for me, I'm only a sophomore, so I don't really know what I want to do with material science and engineering just yet. But there's like really like a lot of cool applications with computational material science. And I was just watching a TED Talk recently about this researcher who was able to like discover materials with like completely new, super hard properties. And they did it completely through like computational methods, where they were like predicting the properties of materials that they hadn't yet tested or hadn't yet created. So all that did is just like really save a lot of time, because creating material and testing material takes a lot of time. So if you can just model that whole process computationally, you can get a ton of work done super fast and do what this researcher in the TED Talk did, and make really good discoveries all in a short span of time. So that's probably how I want to apply computational skills in the future.
Sure. As a mechanical engineer, using computers is definitely really helpful to like model how certain like beams or structures will react when you put forces on them. So that's one use for computer science. But also, I was talking about making apps before. Making apps is really fun because you can just make a tool and it's in your pocket, and then it's it's right there, and then anybody can use it. So those are two things that I both think are really fun.
I'm not an engineer, so I'm not really like great for Jay and Hewitt, because I have no idea what they're talking about. But I'm more like sort of like looking at the practical side of programming, so I enjoy doing, because I'm a stat major, right? So I like performing data analysis on certain you like Excel sheet or stuff. So actually in CS2 we have a module that teaches you about data visualization and how to sort of parse data into like a list, so you can actually draw the different to figure out the relationship between two variables and stuff, and draw on like a scatter plot. So just like basic data visualizations can definitely help. Programming can definitely help with that, but instead of you hand drawing all the stuff by yourself. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a math major, so I feel like computer science and math are very related. almost like computer science is math with computer and math is computer science without the computer. But anyways, so with the CS, like what I learned in CS is that, you know, algorithms take a lot of mathematical logic or just logic in general. And I want to apply what I learned in math classes and what I learned in like CS classes to come up with an algorithm in some time in the future, you know, come up with something cool and way to solve a problem, whether it be like something simple or pretty complex. So yeah. What else? Do you have a CS hero, like as in a person you look up to that works in the realm of CS, that has like made major contributions to the field or, you know, to you in your CS career? Just, you know, who's that CS hero and what they do? Anyone want to go first?
I'll go ahead. For me, honestly, so the professor David Cosby of our intro class, and I think one of the founders of CS Academy is my personal CS hero, just because since I took the intro class with him and hadn't learned programming before that, he was kind of like my first introduction to it, and his lectures were just so, you know, skilled, and they just made a lot of sense. He explained things in a good way, to where like all my like exciting realizations about CS have happened while he was lecturing. So in my mind, I always associate, you know, like cool things with CS with, you know, my first instructor. So for me, it's got to be Cosby.
Yeah, I was going to say Cosby as well. I really liked him as a professor. But I will also say Alan Turing, because he sort of invented the whole field, or he's sort of known as the father of computer science. And so all the computers that we have now is sort of based off of his work. And so he's really influential. So that's my CS hero. In addition to David Cosby.
Cosby is also my number one hero, but because he like, you know, it's just like looking at him, like he's very passionate about teaching computer science to students, and he kind of transferred that passion to his students as well, to make us also, you know, become interested in, you know, learning, pursuing this computer science path. And I would say my second CS hero will be my current professor of computer science. Her name is Kainer. And basically I learned a lot about, you know, the sort of data structures. That comes in after you sort of like took the introductory step of programming. So data structure can be really helpful because instead of focusing on one specific type of variable, you can like sort of blend different types into one, and then you can use that for all the purposes as well. I don't want to like confuse you guys, you know, right now about all the terms and stuff, but just, you know, just want to tell you guys there's so many things to learn about CS, and just keep going after the introductory stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of CS heroes, our student workers made really good, you know, videos and presentation. So be sure to watch them all. You can also hear about my CS hero there, so I won't spoil too much about it. But we also got another question in the chat. In general, is there a benefit to taking CS classes when your major is not CS? For instance, is there a benefit to an art or music performance major? Do you guys have anything?
I can start. I know at CMU, for actually one of the music major concentrations of electronic music, the intro class, which is fairly difficult in my opinion, 15112, is like actually a required class. So whoever is creating that curriculum obviously already knows and understands that no matter what field you're in, CS is going to be important for you. And even if programming doesn't explicitly come up in your field later on, in my opinion, just learning programming and learning CS teaches you a different way to think. And in my opinion, I think it gives you like basic problem solving skills and it just really helps you practice them and develop those. So even if you don't actually end up programming later, the thinking behind like all the problems that you're going to program is invaluable through the rest of the time. And then, you know, as I'm always saying, since I'm an engineer, programming comes up all the time. So for me, I think it's super useful. And I'll say, I think for like a lot of engineering majors, the 15112 class isn't required, but I always tell people, like, even though it's not required, you have to find a way to, you know, fit it in your schedule and take it, because it just really like accelerates your skills and your abilities later on, like nothing else. So 100%, no matter what you're doing, some type of CS or programming is going to be valuable.
I mean, just looking recently at the online generators where they have an AI make art and poetry, and so if you like art, you can also be interested in computer science and like generating art with that. But also synthesize music. So a lot of like ways to combine computer science and art and music, which are all really interesting. And it's a developing field, especially with like the AI stuff. So that could be interesting.
Yeah. So, art, music majors, not really related to computer science. I'm a business major, right? You don't like the first thing you think about business. You don't think about computer science, right? These two areas, I guess, are not really related. But the importance of computer science is to teach you how to problem solve. So the process of having an idea in your mind and then implementing it on something, whether it is through code or just through just actions in general. So that teaches you that sort of mindset to put things into work. Instead of just kind of like having that abstract idea and not and just sit on it. So I think that's very important. When you're taking CS classes.
I want to add one more thing about problem solving. Before, like I took a CS class, I was kind of maybe not the best student where I'd see a physics problem, and if I didn't immediately remember how to do it or know a way to do it, I would kind of just like shrug it off or have to like look at the solution set so then I would remember an idea on how to do it. But in a CS class, when you're confronted with a problem, there really are no external resources to help you like get started on it. You have to just do like raw problem solving. You have to take the problem as it is, and you don't have any other option other than to figure it out. So I feel like once like computer science teaches you more problem solving than anything, and now that like I learned those problem solving skills, and it really just gave me like the confidence to problem solve by myself and not have to like look back on notes or like the general method for how to solve something. Now when I'm in like a physics class or something related, I find myself like having the confidence just to attack the problem and solve it for myself rather than having to like fall back on the notes and look at how to do it. So to me, it's like that's like the number one thing for success in any field is just having the confidence to attack a problem. And to me, that's what the CS class provided for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like just the benefit of taking CS is strengthening your logic, which you kind of need in a lot of fields. Just making sure, why would this work? Why is this flow of lines of codes would work? Just proving to yourself why this would work. And then if there's a bug, proving to yourself why there is a bug and how to go about fixing it. So I definitely feel like, you hone in on your logic skills. But if, to answer like a specific example, like the art or music performance major, I would say, go check out CS2 because there's a lot of applications of art and music there. I know I live with a design major. She's my roommate, and she uses a lot of computer science. Like I didn't know. I went into her room once, and she was just coding things, and she showed me this artwork. She had an animation going on. It was super cool. So I can't tell you the details because I'm not a design major, but I could tell you that you need a lot of code these days to do design. It's not just paper and pen and drawing. It's graphics on computer.
I want to add one other thing about that is like if you are an art major, like if you feel that you're creative in any way, all the CS Academy classes have creative tasks like throughout the course. So there's always like some way to express your creative side with code. And I think that's one of like the main things that CS Academy is always trying to promote is that computer science is not like just a strict field where like you just have to code one way and that's the only way you can do it. Computer science has creativity built into it. Not only because once you learn how to code, you can create literally anything, but also because there's many ways to solve the same problem. So yeah, creativity is baked into programming like from any perspective that you look at it.
Thank you for the great insights, y'all. And we have another question. What is your favorite part of being on the CMU CS Academy team? Does anyone know?
I'll take that one. Yeah. It's definitely the people that I work with. So, so you have a lot of student workers, right, who are, sort of the same age as you. You guys have like similar, like, when you're like just, because school is hard, and balancing the work schedule and school schedule is hard as well. So just learning from how the other student workers, how they cope with how they balance, how they do time management with, both school and work, can, sort of give you some insight into how you can do a lot of things at once, which is an important skill to have, in the future as well in the workforce, I believe. I'm not in the workforce, but I think time management is definitely a great skill to have. And just everybody's really intelligent, very just fun to work with. So I'm just really glad that, I'm part of the team and just learning a lot of different stuff from just all kinds of people. And I want to shout out to the full-timer staff as well, because sometimes, we're students and stuff, so they try their best to accommodate us to our class schedule. So really appreciate them for, just kind of like taking care of us in that aspect. And thank you all. Yeah.
That's true. So, yes, my associates, I think, are a good part. I also like meeting teachers because we do a lot of professional development sessions, and it's really fun to talk to teachers and answer their questions and show them how to do the material. And it's fun to meet people. I like meeting people. I like leading the sessions with one of my coworkers. So those professional development sessions are a lot of fun.
So to add on to what Hewitt was saying, I love meeting people too, because just the other day when I was doing a professional development session, I met a teacher that was actually from right around where I am from in Michigan, and we actually knew some of the same people. So that was pretty exciting. But aside from that, for me, like my absolute favorite part of CS Academy has been the teaching, because with the first time I taught a PD session, I was so nervous that I was like actually shaking before it. Like, I was terribly nervous. But then after it had gone well. It was like super fulfilling, and it was just such a good time that I felt like I got on this high, and I think people have called it the teaching high. Where it's like after you have like a successful PD session, like there's no better feeling in the world. So for me, like now I look forward to PD sessions because I know afterwards I'm going to be walking out of there like feeling amazing. Because every time I teach, it just makes me feel amazing. So that's absolutely been my most favorite part.
No, teaching has literally been my favorite part. I know I love my coworkers, I love the full-time staff, but I really like teaching as well. And one of the favorite experiences, I guess, is talking to teachers about CS, education in general, not just some codes. What's a list, what's a 2D list, what's a for loop, but how do you teach CS and why is it important? Why should we teach it? How do we promote CS among students, and how do we get them to become interested in CS? And having those discussions with multiple people from multiple backgrounds was definitely eye-opening, and it's definitely my favorite part. And if you're watching this, feel free to just talk to us, come to our PDs, ask us any questions that you might have. We can talk about it for almost hours. If time allows. but yeah. Do you guys have anything else to add on to that? Do you have any advice for students interested in CS, or tips for any middle schoolers, high schoolers, students, or students in general?
I have a quick piece. So just stick with it when it gets hard. For me, when I was first learning CS, I don't think, obviously it's been super rewarding, but I don't think I've ever learned a subject that was more frustrating at the same time, because they always say programming is 99% debugging and only 1% actually writing code. And that is absolutely true. I cannot even explain how much time I've spent just debugging code that shouldn't have even been that hard to write. So, but it's always worth it. It's super frustrating. There's been times where I've just been mad and had to walk away from my computer, or maybe give it an hour before I revisit it. But you're always going to figure it out. You have a problem-solving ability. You will always figure out the problem at hand, and you'll always feel rewarded for it in the end. So, number one rule is stick with it no matter what.
Good.
yeah, sticking with it is definitely really important. But also like the more you learn, So you start off pretty slowly and like this is a variable and this is, but as you progress, then you can do more and more things. And so yeah, really the progression is exponential. So sticking with it is definitely good advice if you're just starting out in computer science.
Yeah, definitely agree with what Jay and Hugh said about sticking with it. I also think that the most important thing is to make the first step, right? Because a lot of students talk to some of the PD teachers, their students have this sort of bad connotation about computer science, and it's not as bad as you think. Looking at all the projects we've done, I'm sure you guys, middle schoolers and high schoolers, you have all of the creativity and then putting stuff into work. You don't get that much opportunity to actually put your idea into work, but computer science can help you accomplish that. So making the first step into just learning computer science can open you up to so many opportunities and then make you feel so fulfilling. So
One other thing I want to add, and maybe this relates to more like creative task stuff, but like let's say you're learning computer science and then you want to do something with it, like you want to write an app or create like a mini project. For me, the best way to go about doing that and really like do something cool with code is to think about like forget all the skills you've learned so far, forget programming, just think about what do I want to create, lock in that idea, and then write whatever code and learn whatever you need to get to that end goal. Because I think a lot of times, like when you're early on and learning programming, you're thinking of like, oh, what can I do with this? You limit yourself to the techniques you've learned. So you think like, oh, like how could I use a for loop to do something cool? Or how would I use conditionals to make something cool? And in my opinion, that always kind of limits your brainstorming ability. So if I have one piece of advice just for wanting to create something with code is think about what the end goal is without thinking at all about how you're going to do it. Lock that in, and then do whatever it takes to get to that end goal.
Thank you. And if I have advice for students who are interested in CS but are not completely sure or not been convinced enough to actually stick with it, just know that CS is not just about coding or just about graphics. Because I feel like back in high school when I had my first CS class, I was definitely interested, but all we basically learned about was graphics and draw a circle, create a game. But when I got to college, I finally learned that there's more than just graphics, games, animations. I learned that there's like more algorithms, like math behind it. There's logic behind it, and it's more like puzzle solving rather than being creative. And creativity doesn't have to come from like artistic inspirations for your project. It could come from practicality. Like making Google searches, that someone had to like come up with that through CS, and it's probably not artistic inspiration, but anyways, just know that there's just more than what you probably learned right now in middle school and high school, and just learn about it online. See if you're interested, stick with it, and then take it to college.
Yeah, can I add on to that? So like sort of like how math majors don't really do a lot of algebra or adding numbers. When you get really advanced in computer science, like programming is just sort of the beginning. But as you get more advanced, it's like algorithms and like how to solve, like Christina was saying, like how to solve problems and how to like the most efficient ways to solve problems. And so there's a lot more, there's a lot more theoretical stuff than just making apps and websites, which I think is really cool. And I want to learn more about that. I don't know a lot about it, but it seems really interesting.
I want to like kind of second what you said. Is that I feel like the first things you learn in programming, they feel really tedious, and for that reason it can feel boring at first. But I can guarantee you, it only gets less tedious because as you go along, like in your programming skills, and you learn more, it like all the stuff that seemed tedious, you just find ways to do it in a really fast way or a really clever way. So if it seems at all like boring or just frustrating, I promise that all goes away and it gets really exciting. So just once again, stick with it as always.
We should put that on the website. Yeah, but it only gets less tedious.
More thinking, less typing.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, what my parents used to say, look at the whole forest instead of the tree, you know. Just don't just look at programming, look at the whole thing. And yeah. You know, have you like ever overcome like a professional academic obstacle, you know, through your CS career, academic path in any sort of way? Anyone? If not, I can definitely go. This semester has been my academic obstacle. Probably learning new, you know, data structures was definitely a little bit harder, but it was because it was a new concept. But what I learned from it is that, you know, I finally understand what data structures are now, and you know, trying to like explain it to yourself rather than, you know, going to office hours first, just asking, trying to reason with it, struggling with it a little bit, was the best way to overcome, you know, like some difficulty or confusion in a class or with the concept. And yeah.
I have one. So in my final project for 112, some advice that Professor Cosby gave us was like when you're doing your project, if you get stuck, even if you like delete everything, it'll be easier the second time. So when I was making Minecraft, I made it and it's like there's a block. And I was like, this is great, but there I got to a point where I couldn't make any more, and so I just deleted everything, started again, and that was like frustrating. But then he was right. Like the second time, it went a lot faster and I got further. But then at a certain point, I was like, oh, I have to delete like large chunks of this project because it's just not working. Like I have to go down a different route to scale it. So something I learned was that really just, you know, if you do it again, even it feels like you're restarting from scratch, but you're not, because you already have like the knowledge of how to do it and what doesn't work. And so doing something the second time and the third time, it gets better, even though you're still starting from like maybe the beginning, or it feels like you like a major setback, but it's not really, because a lot of it, like we said, a lot of it is thinking. And so if you've done most of the thinking, then the typing isn't really the hard part. And so if you have to do a lot of typing, it's not a problem. Not much of a problem as it seems like it's going to be when you're starting out.
Definitely, I agree with Hewitt. And personally, you know, I find I have a lot of like difficulty transitioning between different programming languages. So I'm sure you've heard of all these programming languages out there and stuff. So it might be intimidating at first because the syntax is different, the format, how everything is different and stuff. But if you actually understand the algorithm, or you know how the problem solving process, it's just a matter of time before you get used to the specific syntax for that programming language. So definitely, just you know, you have to get the basics done. You have to understand like the loops and the basic data structures and stuff. So that can definitely be useful for all kinds of programming languages. So don't be scared if you're trying a new programming language. Just stick with it and then apply the concept you already know to it.
Yeah, I want to add on to what John was saying. This semester I started using this program called MATLAB, and it kind of has its own language and syntax and everything. So and I thought, you know, since I had taken this intro programming class, that I would, you know, already know what I was doing, and that I'd be ahead of everyone else. So I became an overconfident, and then I immediately like realized all the syntax was different. Nothing worked the way I expected it to. And then so yeah, that was a huge obstacle, because then for like a week I was just trying to figure out like the MATLAB syntax and just how I could apply like the programming principles I knew with this new syntax. So, but luckily I actually was able to get used to the syntax, and then I was able to start applying those principles again. But yeah, I would say that's one of the biggest obstacles I faced, was changing languages, because man, it feels like you're starting over. But as soon as you get over that little hump, then you're right back at where you started before. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like adding on, learning C this semester, it was a really hard time because Python, it feels like you're talking to a friend, giving instructions. And then there's C where it's like gets mad at you if you get something wrong, some syntax wrong. And it was a rough transition for me.
We had learned 3 languages for C.
Oh yeah,
Essentially, yeah.
we had to learn 3 different types of C, but it all worked out. I can code now in C, but that was also a really rough transition for me. And we have another question here. Are you involved in any clubs or activities that are CS based? Because I'm not, but my friends are. What's it called? The automotive, like the driving.
The CMR.
CMR,
Driving racing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are involved in that one, which uses a lot of coding, I guess, and computer science. I don't know much about it, but that's one of the most popular ones. I know my roommate is also involved in Buggy, and I think they use like a software to design Buggy. So those are pretty interesting if you guys know any other clubs or activities.
Yeah, I think we actually have a presentation from RoboSub, like the robotics submarine. I'm not in it, but I know a lot of people who are in it. So they actually combine like engineering and computer science because it's a submarine in a body of water. They use sensors and program it. So that's another CS/engineering club.
I'll say I'm not in the robotics club, but I remember freshman year kind of thinking about joining it and going to a couple sessions. And at one point there was like this session where we basically just like built a little robot. And I immediately realized that programming is like at the heart of robotics because you can't have a robot unless you program whether the Arduino board you're using or whatever control system it's using. So yeah, I'd say that's a club that I dabbled with that definitely uses CS in a really important way.
Yeah. So like my club is so like we talk about robotics, right? My club is actually not CS focused, but we use a lot of CS in it. So I'm in this club. It's called Tartan Student Fund. So we analyze stocks. It's a business club, and you might be wondering like how are we using CS in our class? So to sort of like we had to analyze the stock, right? So we need to like look at the risks of the stock. So how do we compute the risk? We kind of like sort of find a relationship between the stock and the market, the relationship between that and the stock with other stocks in the market as well. So to do that, we use different CS programming languages. We use R a lot to find the risks and just like kind of like compute the intrinsic value of the stock. So yeah, so just any clubs that you might not think that it might be related to CS, at first, but as you get into it, well, that's like how the world is shaping up as well. So it's a very important skill to have.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna add. This isn't a club, but for my mechanical engineering class, we actually had a robotics project. We had to program a robot to follow a line and use an ultrasonic sensor to measure how far it was from a wall. And so that was something where I actually could use my programming experience to program the robot. So just another little opportunity.
I love that. I was just thinking about it. Yeah, I noticed like the theme of what you guys were saying is like whether if you're not in CS, say like you're in engineering or business, CS can always be used as a tool to do what you're interested in better. So like what you were saying, you're able to program a robot, and for your club, you're basically using it as a tool to do your end goal a little faster and a little better, make things easier. So that's just something I usually see CS as well as just some way for me to. It's just kind of a means to a different goal. It's always involved somehow.
Yeah. Adding on to that, like I remember during our orientation week, there was like a talent show hosted by our upperclassmen. And there's this, I think a junior back then who used like CS to come up with like a music program. So he had this like motion censored instrument playing little robot, which involved software engineering. But yeah, that one was pretty cool. So that was one of the interesting like passion project I saw in the past. And speaking of like passion projects, do you guys like, do you guys have any like passion project going on, just doing it out of fun, using CS, or have you seen someone use like CS to, have, or just to, come up with a project of their own?
Oh, sure. So I talked a little bit before about app development, but in this class that Jerry's also taking, when we were using MATLAB, I was like, MATLAB is frustrating me. I want to multiply matrices, but not with MATLAB. And I was like, I have a calculator to do normal things on my phone. And I was like, what if I made an app to multiply matrices and do different functions with vectors and matrices? And so we had a fall break, and over fall break, I started making an app that could do some of those things, and hope to work on it more of a winter break. That was a fun little project that I started.
Yeah, so like as you can see now, because for CS Academy we have this graphic packages, right? So there are a lot of different packages that are built into Python. So for me, like business and stats, we some useful packages are like pandas and scrappy. So that's actually on my to-do list. I'm currently not doing it right now, but during the winter, I'm trying to learn these packages so I can for sure contribute to my student and professional career.
So don't have any passion projects currently, but and I won't go into it. But in the spring, I'll be involved in a project where I'm going to have to be testing out and kind of recalibrating a bunch of equipment that's not currently calibrated. So I'm definitely predicting that in order to do that in a time efficient manner, I'm definitely going to have to use some programming just to like interpret all the data, interpret and process all the data I get from these machines so that they can be recalibrated. So again, that's something not like CS focused, but I'm going to use programming as like a really fundamental tool in order to further that project.
I don't really have a passion project at the moment, but like over the summer, I definitely came up with like some fun exercises, like teacher tools with Hewitt. Actually, it's like
Oh yeah.
it's on CMU CS Academy Instagram page, which you should definitely follow. I feel like, but you can there. It's like one of the posts is that we made a teacher, like a popsicle picker tool, and that was really fun. And one of the other passion projects I've seen is something similar to Hewitt's. Is that I think one of my friends actually came up with the physics problem solver. So he like coded all these equations, and then depending on the problem, it'll solve the, a little problem for you. But anyways, that's another fun passion project I've seen. And we got another question here in the chat. Looking back and reflecting on your CS journey, what would you say to your younger self about CS?
I'll say. I would just tell myself to embrace it and that it's all going to be worth it. Because when starting the CS class at CMU, I was pretty nervous, thought I might even fail it because I heard it was really hard. And I was really, I don't even remember why I chose to take it. But if I could go back and tell myself, I would tell myself, like, first of all, you're going to be good at this. So and anyone can be good at it. You have the ability to problem solve. So just go ahead and give it everything you got. And then also, once you learn the fundamentals of programming, that can lead you down to numerous opportunities. For example, this whole job with CS Academy, I would have never had the opportunity to do without that initial class and just sticking with it and really doing my best in that class. That has led me down a road of many other opportunities. And since now that I've given my all to that class and I have like these programming skills, I can apply them to just any other project I'm interested in, and it'll just kind of put me in a more competitive position, like across the board. So if there's one piece of advice I have for anybody, it's always that CS is probably going to lead you down more roads and more opportunities than you could predict before learning CS.
Yeah. So my advice, I wish I started taking it seriously earlier. So I only took this 112 class in like the spring of my first year. I was like, I wish I took it in the fall. Like I want to start sooner. It's because there are a lot of opportunities, like Jay said. And so the sooner you start, the more opportunities you have. And so I have a little brother. I've been telling him because he's like he's getting around the age where I'm like start coding now. Like, you'll thank me later. So yeah, just getting started earlier.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Hewitt. So it's never really too early to start CS. I guess like you might think that I'm in middle school, right? I'm just beginning my secondary education. It's not too late because you have a sort of a strong fundamental math background. So that's definitely like arithmetic is a huge part of CS, and don't think that you can't do it. You definitely have the ability to do it. And even though like if you're not used to the Python language, there are other like introductory programming languages you can start with. Like I used Scrappy, right? Was it Scratch? Not Scratch. Scratch. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Scratch. So you kind of just like, if I remember correctly, you just put a bunch of blocks and then sort of made a program using blocks, and it was developed by Amazon, right? To like try to sort of get younger children into CS. So that would be a great place to start if you don't want to, go into Python at first. Just developing that interest, I believe, is the most important part.
Well, really quickly. I remember when I was really young, there was this game, like a game on the App Store. You need to like make a crane move blocks around, but it was sort of like block coding, sort of like Scratch. And it's just sort of like a fun thing you can do. It doesn't really feel like coding, but it just sort of gets you thinking about the algorithms and the logic behind telling a machine what to do. So that's something.
I'd say just be open to everything because back in high school, I really liked physics. I actually came here as a physics major. I changed my major, but as a high schooler, I was pretty closed-minded. I was only like, oh, I'm only into physics. I'm not gonna do, computer science. Coding is not even on my mind. And then I got to college and I was like, you know what? I'm only gonna take a programming course just because it's part of my requirement. And then I ended up taking 112, which was not a requirement, but I did it because one of my friends said, if you go to McDonald's, you gotta have Big Mac. If you come to CMU, you gotta do 112. So I ended up doing 112, and I actually really enjoyed it. And one thing I would tell my younger self is to have an open mind, try a lot of new things, including CS and programming, because it has a lot of applications to real life, even physics too. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things I would say, be open and do programming. Yeah, we're at 4 right now, which is the end of the session. But if you guys want to have any last, comments, messages out to all our lovely teachers.
Happy CS Ed Week.
Yeah, happy CS Ed Week. And we enjoyed having you guys here. And thank you for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Thank you.